In what hopefully is a winning attempt to increase production value, I've got a lav mic on today, so I don't have to shout, and hopefully it's not super echoey in the garage for this unboxing. So we got our big box in from ICT Billet. They do sell like an accessory kit where it's kind of one part number to get everything you need for LS's. But it showed out of stock, and also, if I remember correctly, like it includes the harmonic balancer pulley, which you pretty much, if you have an LS motor that you bought for a swap, it's probably got that balancer pulley on it, crank pulley. And if I'm not mistaken, their kit uses like the LS1 style water pump, and then you have to use the spacers to get it to truck spacing instead of just shipping you the truck spaced water pump. Sticker, here's our list of parts. Water pump and thermostat bolt kit, LS truck, alternator, and power steering, R4 AC compressor bracket, R4 AC compressor. Anyway, I'll probably put this on screen, or I won't, I don't know. In the past, we've done a couple of CVF racing accessory drive kits, which are great if you're gonna run an electric fan, but over the last two trucks, we're not running electric fans because I don't care for them myself. So you can't use the CVF stuff, they don't work too well with fans. So this is kind of piecemeal together using what I wanted to use from ICT Billet. And I want to say it was maybe $1,300 range for everything, including the accessories. Get right into it. The first thing, this is the bracket, which actually I think it's the same bracket we used on our square body. This will help me. Comes with a pretty nice set of instructions, so kind of see what you need to do there. So that's the bracket for one side of the engine. AC compressor kit. And this more matches like the factory OBS AC compressor. I've heard it called pancake compressor, radial compressor. So there's our tensioner, idler, spacers, hardware, and the brackets. So this is our power steering pump pulley. Make sure and order one of those if you're building your kit yourself. Looks pretty rad, 5-spoke, you know what I'm saying. And you're gonna have to have a special tool to press that on to your power steering pump. This is a Ziploc bag that literally just includes a warning label. I don't guess you're gonna mess up a power steering pump pulley too bad, but we'll give it our best shot. I always like whenever I see that it's AC Delco brand. Think about it, in most of the newer vehicles, not at my age, we've seen it differently, but you're gonna go 100,000 miles before you start replacing anything on your engine. Sometimes 150 before you worry about an alternator or starter or a water pump. That was not always the case. ICT Billet sells you a brand new GM or AC Delco alternator. This is the standard 105 amp. There could be some discussion, I think, which I'd be glad to discuss in the comments, how you want to choose your alternator. A lot of people want a higher amp alternator because they feel like it'll, I don't know, it's definitely not going to increase the performance of your vehicle unless you're literally dragging down voltage and amperage to your fuel injectors or your coil boxes. But pretty much everything that you have in your vehicle will list the amperage draw, and you just want to make sure you've got an alternator that covers every bit of that. So like, cars are pretty smart. They'll stop sending power to the battery or to the radio and other silly stuff when the engine's cranking. This truck's got a carburetor on it and an MSD box for the ignition coils. There's no heated and cooled seats. There's no heated mirrors. There's no screens and cameras and multiple computers running at one time. So 105 amp alternator will be more than enough to take care of the draw for like our fuel pump, our ignition system, and our stereo, and like dash lights, headlights. So the most draw you're gonna have is like at night in the rain with your air conditioner on. That's when you wanna calculate your total amperage needs. Okay, WP and thermostat. So there's our water pump bolts that I asked for specifically. This AC compressor, oh, it comes with the little sealing rings, O-ringed seals. This is brand new. It is not remanufactured. It does have a warranty, but the way they put the description about the warranty kind of makes me nervous if they would ever pay out, because they just want you to prove that there was nothing in the system that could have damaged their compressor before they'll warranty it. I'm not sure how successful you'd be at that. Hopefully we don't run into that problem. So there is our radial compressor. And I like them because they don't get in the way of your valve cover. Like over there, we've got that breather and fill cap. Sometimes those peanut style or the Sandin SD7 compressors, the body of it sticks back so far, it prevents you from accessing your valve cover where you need to. Matter of fact, when we had those Holley valve covers that had the coil covers on them, couldn't even change the oil without unbolting the AC compressor and rolling it out of the way. This should be our power steering pump. Got a little stain on this wax paper. So yeah, that's kind of the old style power steering pump, what came on the truck engines. It's not the really cool, sleek LS pump. My hope was that I could literally just hook up this truck's factory power steering lines from the gearbox directly to this pump with no modification. And I do like always having the reservoir connected to the pump itself. I don't like that remote mount. You'll have 80 bucks just in the hoses to connect your pump to a remote tank. This is instructions about a torque wrench that I didn't buy. So what are we missing? The water pump, a giant box. Also, brand new AC Delco gasket kit with a gasket and O-ring for your water neck or your thermostat housing, whatever you like to call it. Okay, and these come with a little cover for, oh, that doesn't even look like it's pressed down all the way. So if you are running a mechanical fan, you've got that threaded pulley on there. We'll see how the belt lines up, but that doesn't exactly seat flush, which you would think it should. All right, so I ran the bolts through the water pump and set the gaskets on each side. The gaskets are mirror images of each other, so there's not really a left and right. And then sort of hold it up there to where you can get at least one on each side started. You should make sure your threads are clear before you get to this point. Also, if you've got you a nasty looking junkyard engine that you, I don't know, it could have already been sort of disassembled when you bought it, and there could be no telling what kind of crud in there. Also, if you paint these things, it tends to gum them up a little. I'm just running these up to where they almost touch, and then we'll start torquing them in a cross pattern. Shouldn't take too much since those things are O-ringed. For our AC bracket, I'm going to start with this guy, and he's going to use one of these, the only tapered headed bolt in the kit. And you know, you probably could use like a blue thread locker on this, but I'm not going to, just in case. It looks like this tab is going to have to get bent. It's on my header gasket. That's a Brian Tooley multi-layer steel. I'm going to make sure that that doesn't interfere with this black bracket laying flush against the front of that cylinder head. You can tell how to orient this because it's got a relief there for the tensioner. And it's gonna, I guess, want me to just have this other spacer handy to go through where the tensioner is gonna bolt. This next step would be handy to use the buddy system, because you have to run the bolt through the front bracket, then through the AC compressor, then have a spacer, then the rear bracket, and then a nut, which is going to be right there close on that little filter breather. That's something. Give you guys a view of the back side. It's pretty tight. Everything fits really well though. The machining is very precise, which I'm sure they've sold a bazillion of these things. They've probably worked out some of the kinks or any potential issues. Well, they certainly should have by now. So we got to put that spacer, we kind of left that out earlier. I figured it wouldn't stick around. This will index itself. And that bolts into the cylinder head. Oh, it doesn't. It bolts into the rear bracket that's threaded. Now that we've done that, we can tighten all these up. Uh-oh, can't really get to that one now. That was probably the reason why they had that order so specific. But I can put a wrench on it. 13 millimeter, that works just fine. Get these snugged up. This is a 8 millimeter Allen, 15 millimeter nut backing it up. So all we've got left on this side is this idler, and the pulley is, I think the bearing is centered on it, so it doesn't matter which side you have out. Pick the prettiest side, I guess. Got this bolt, nice little washer. Oh, and then this little bushing will center it, so the bearing will ride on that. Slide your bolt through your front bracket, and then you have a nut to back it up. It's like 10 millimeter, wait, 13 millimeter on the front, 15 millimeter on the back. Probably after you get the thing running, put 100 miles on it or so, torque back over. And actually you should go over an entire truck after that if you built one like frame up. Okay, thermostat. I bought it from Jegs, 160 degree thermostat, which is what I really do like to run on these, is the engine stays around the 180 mark no matter what, even in high temperature traffic. So what I bought, this is an assembly. It comes with a thermostat made to the housing, and it does have an O-ring in the box. Although our water pump came with one, kind of just be real careful that that O-ring stays in the groove that's made for it when you go to install it, which I like those way better than gaskets. So my pro tip of this video is use one hardware assembly just to get things started and leave some slack, and then you can put the rest of it together. Oh, these are all 13 millimeter headed bolts, which I think makes it technically a 10 millimeter bolt. It takes a 13, unless they're reduced heads, and then they can be closer gap than that. Anyway, that's nerd stuff. Another idler pulley, just similar to what we had on the last one, where you've got the bushing, comes in the back side. To center it, it is nice that you don't have to keep switching which tools you're using on this side. Man, that got real tight real quick. I did mention, or didn't, whatever, that you're gonna need to use a pulley installer at some point, but this is not that point. All right, I bragged about these ICT Billet boys, but I have concerns. That's a big threaded bolt sticking out of the back. I think we're making contact with this, which I know is what keeps the housing, or the pump, bolted to this reservoir housing. Ah, I take it all back. So it does say in the instructions to replace the studs in back of the pump with the supplied flange bolts. All right, back in business. After reading the instructions, this thing still is not fitting well. You guys aren't just looking at the back side of my balding head too. Oh, it's the cap. I don't know how in the world you're gonna even check the fluid in this thing. Someone got some splaining to do here, because that's not coming out. And these aren't even fully bolted yet. Problems. So it turns out the one that ICT sent us was technically clocked in correctly, but that's how that pump was supposed to be. They probably mistakenly got some from Cardone that were designed for trucks that had that luxury or off-road package. So if you're buying one of these, you know, make sure. I did everything I could gathering information, and that's what I came up with. If you can look, you can see the difference between these two if you just line up the bolt holes. I'll go ahead and put this alternator on, because it is a whopping 2-bolt install. and maybe that'll go off without a hitch. Also, it looks like the belt may ride on the back edge of that water pump pulley. So it's probably pressed on far enough. Now we can put the pulley on, which these, this Cardone pulley that ICT will send you, it's got windows in it so you can still unbolt things. The factory ones are smooth, so without removing the pulley, you can't unbolt these things. Almost forgot. Put some anti-seize on these threads before we start doing this forceful work. I've noticed most part stores anymore offer the free tool rental where you go buy the tool for whatever it costs on your credit card, and then you return it later as part of their tool rental program. So you don't have to own all this stuff if you're not making a living doing it, for sure. Now if you get the fancier style accessory drive units that have like the LS1 Type 2 pumps, then you're not going to be so lucky, and you may end up spending some real money building lines like we mentioned earlier. Like if you use a remote style reservoir, which I am not a fan of. I really like the reservoir on the pump itself. There's no practice runs here, by the way. This is doing it live for you guys. That way, if there's much drama, you get to be a part of it. Well, so far that feels pretty good. This may need to be bent a little. Probably also should have figured out what size wrench goes on that fitting before I got it buried on the back side of this power steering pump. But it's hard to be smart and this tall. And I did, by the way, put the new O-ring on that it comes with in the kit. I know someone was probably going to ask. And I flushed the gearbox. The whole system has flush fluid in it, so in case anyone from the warranty department's curious, that's all been handled with top and utmost priorities. So full transparency, ended up just taking the pulley back off, then filled it up with fluid. I spun it with my finger some just to see what would happen, and not so much of anything. But I will jack it up and turn the wheels left and right several times before I crank it and have pressure. That way, I think it ought to get a lot of the air out of the system before the pump starts trying to need to be primed. So since I was in town this morning, I went ahead and bought a belt that, according to ICT's website, should be that 110.5 inches long. Went to do the test fit. That thing hangs off of there like a 2 a.m. prom dress. If your wife has one of those clothing tape measure things, that'd probably be cool. But like if I put this here and then add a little room for that tensioner, that puts the routing at 95 inches. So I bought this one somewhere around 97 inches. A lot better. And that's with the tensioners all the way down. If I was going to give you advice, I'd say you want the belt, if the tensioner's all the way down, to just barely go over the accessories. This belt could stand to be a little smaller. Probably just send it. If we have belt issues, if it stretches a little or wears in and straightens out some, I guess we can swap it out for a shorter belt. So what we ended up with is one that is stated to be 97 1/8 outside circumference. Okay, this all looks pretty good. We'll have this stuff tidied up a little more as we move along. So I'm gonna get the battery hooked up and let's test fire this thing, and we'll call this a video. And for you keen-eyed viewers that have been paying attention, yep, this is a different carburetor. A few things we needed to switch it for transmission linkage, and the other one was too big, as we discussed in the engine video. This one does have electric choke as well, which I don't care one way or another. But we're also going to change this spacer plate below it, because I have one in that box right there that we're going to use instead. Anyway, let's see if all this stuff was worth the effort today. belt's still on there. And I recognized we were showing good alternator charge on our display, and the temp was at 0, which means it's at least got resistance from the temp sender to tell it that the temperature is not above where the base of the gauge goes. Call this a successful install, as successful as I guess it could be, in the sense that we finished it in this video. But we did have our challenges. We learned something about power steering pumps, and we learned that measure first before you buy it, no matter what their website says on these belts. I hope you guys enjoyed. Educational unboxing, install, one more step towards finishing the Daddy Bill truck. Got almost every part here to finish it, minus this LMC truck order that's like over a week old, and I just got a shipping confirmation today. Outside of that, oh, and the brakes. But those are special, so I'm being more tolerant on that timeline. I can't wait to show them to you guys. See you in the next video.